Do you know what really annoys me?
What?
I am really sick of all of these people saying that Otto is the reason there is a civil war and everything is going wrong.
What? But he totally pimps out his daughter. He's trying to steal the throne.
Is he though?
He's trying to put his grandchildren on the throne. Oh my god, what about Rhaenyra?
So we are drawing very close to season 2 of House of the Dragon, and we're about to see this civil war go down. And I thought it was appropriate that we take some time to assign blame, because what else is there left to do, really?
It's what it's all about.
I think so. Judging by the fandom, I really think it's all about assigning blame. Let's start out with the divisive character, the beloved character, everybody's favourite character, Otto Hightower.
Yay!
And I think specifically he is often blamed as the reason that this whole civil war goes down at all. And I think that's kind of unfair. I think he gets a lot of unfair judgment. Honestly, I think he's very misunderstood. And it's really annoying.
He does pimp out his daughter.
I mean, he does do that. It's very difficult to deny.
There's nasty business at play. There's criticism to be levied. And we shall levy it right now. The hammer of justice falls upon House Hightower. I mean, he does do quite a lot of stuff before he starts the pimping out. He's been a hand for a long time. It's not just the first king he serves.
You could argue that he wouldn't be hand for so long if he were terrible.
And the time period for which he is hand is also a peaceful time. Otto was also present at the succession meeting ball that Jaehaerys threw.
Otto saw that they created a precedent that a male cousin was supposed to, or at least was elected to be king over an actual daughter.
Is it a fair thing to say that he may have had a hand in for the succession being voted on as hand to Jaehaerys? He might have been part of that decision.
I think we're speculating at that point.
I like speculating.
We can definitely speculate it, I think. By all accounts, he seems to have been a good hand. And the second thing, I think it really speaks to the fact that Otto is a really good person, okay? He's just amazing. He wants what is best for everyone. I think a lot of people kind of skip over the fact that Otto really did support Rhaenyra, and a lot of the characters that are so beloved really didn't, like Lord Strong and Corlys.
And we might even speculate that if not for Otto's intervention, Rhaenyra would never have been heir at all.
Otto doesn't really seem to have a problem with Rhaenyra at the beginning of the season. Otto's main issue throughout everything really seems to be Daemon. So they have this council meeting, and it seems that this is a meeting that Otto and the Maester, Mellows, called, and they have decided they should put forth Rhaenyra as heir.
They had their own little pre-dance of the dragons right there.
I mean, you're not really wrong either, I think, because you're seeing in this meeting that there is this incredible fear that Daemon is now once again kind of Viserys' heir, since he doesn't have the heir he had that huge tourney for. This is definitely Otto's biggest fear, to see Daemon
ascend the Iron Throne.
Yes. I mean, clearly he sees Rhaenyra as a much, much better option. She does not seem to have that streak of evil, and she seems, probably in Otto's mind, to be someone that can be molded into a better ruler.
Much safer and less chaotic.
Yes, definitely. But as this meeting goes on and chaos is everywhere, it's definitely a disaster of a meeting. You see a lot of the other participants, the lords, really having an issue with putting forth a woman as ruler. The horror. And you see Otto after this realizing that his plan of Rhaenyra as heir is not going to go over seamlessly. This is when we see him kind of change course a little bit. I truly think this is the point.
Even if maybe still favourable above Daemon.
It seemed to me like a lot of the other people at that council meeting didn't even consider whether she would be better than Daemon, just that that's not what is done, that's not the precedent Jaehaerys created, It's not
the law.
So we're seeing him write this letter to Old Town after, and it is my personal speculation that he is writing his brother and they're trying to cook up another plan that is less likely to end with a Daemon as heir and king at the end of this road.
I don't even think this would have happened if Otto didn't plant the idea of Rhaenyra being heir above Daemon.
I think that's true. That wasn't even on his mind until after this meeting.
No, it seems Otto is the first one to support Rhaenyra as heir.
I'm gonna wager that he regrets that.
Yeah.
Yeah. He also seems to have been in this point after she's named in that transition period. He has already sent Alicent to Viserys at this point, but he also seems to try to counsel Rhaenyra.
We do get the scene where Otto is helping Rhaenyra choose a new guard for the King's Guard. He's clearly trying to teach her about ways to be diplomatic and show support and build alliances with the different houses through acts such as this, and she's really showing that she's quite headstrong and very resistant to receiving advice and counsel from a very experienced hand at this point. And when she does try to engage with the council while she's present, she's just sort of being shooed out and being like, oh, there's probably better things for you to do, instead of really being included and getting acquainted and experience. There's also later on when she's flying to Dragonstone to retrieve the egg that Daemon has stolen.
Yes.
She does specifically decide to do that without permission. Her actions do kind of speak to her being somewhat difficult to control and steer.
Because it's very clear to us as the viewers that Rhaenyra is very much influenced by someone else, her very, very hot uncle. And I don't know if this is something that Otto notices or not. I would suppose probably not a lot, at least at the beginning. How would he really know?
She may resemble Daemon more than Viserys.
She's definitely stronger than Viserys as well, so that is probably not desirable to Otto. And all of this leads us to, I suppose, the thing that makes people hate him the most.
Pimp out!
It's definitely not unique in any way, but
very creepy.
Very uncomfortable to watch as he's asking his daughter to put on her dead mother's dress. Can anyone not feel for her in this moment?
It's really hard to defend Otto in this situation, even if you could argue that he might see this as a good thing for her, that like he is securing the highest position possible for her, but it's real nasty.
As far as I am aware, I think this kind of pushing his daughter to marry the king is what is painting him as truly the villain for a lot of people. But he isn't the only one trying to do this. We see a lot of other people trying to sell their daughters. Seems to be a very popular pastime in Westeros in this time. The most obvious other person is sitting right next to Otto. We do have Corlys, which is at least as ambitious as Otto. He is trying to sell off his daughter as well, and they are in a little bit of a bidding war. If you can even call it that, they are trying to pimp out their daughters. Poor little, cute, adorable, the sweetest ever Lena. Okay. And Viserys makes a big deal that he can't marry a 12-year-old, which I'm not going to judge him for that. You know, that is a very fair thing to say, but then he also is completely fine with marrying the 14-year-old. Corlys is just lusting after this alliance. I mean, can't he just marry Viserys himself? He seems to be so intent on hooking up with his family. The point is still that Corlys is doing or trying to do the exact same thing that Otto does. He is obviously very, very pissed off as he is unsuccessful. He is obviously not a second son, so Lena is a more suitable connection. I'm not going to say wife because a 12-year-old child is never going to be a suitable wife.
A little later in the timeline we do get another example of this auctioning off a daughter. The Lord Baratheon is selling out his daughter to Aemon in order to secure an alliance for the Greens.
It seems like if you're a lord and you have daughters, you are in the business of marrying off those daughters.
Yeah.
We also see this in Game of Thrones, where we see Tyrion selling Marcella for an alliance. He's an uncle selling his niece, and Cersei is obviously visibly upset. She's not on board with that, but Tyrion is a man and he can apparently sell other people's daughters as well.
Some would say she was born for this.
We also see mothers selling daughters because it's a wonderful hobby. Great time. And Catelyn is trying to sell off Arya.
Arya will marry his son, Waldron.
Thankfully for Arya, she doesn't have to actually go through with all of that, and she deals with them in a different way. But the late Lord Frey is also very happy in the daughter-selling business. So as you can see from all of this, Otto is definitely painted as the most ambitious man throughout all of this. And I don't even think he's the most ambitious man on that small council. As we see from the disastrous council meeting, Corlys is going with lots of different options. And he is definitely thinking outside the box.
There are others who would have a claim.
To be fair, Otto is ambitious. I think the point is just that he's not more ambitious than any other man in his position. And it's only because you are seeing how that is negatively impacting Rhaenyra that it seems overly ambitious.
Yeah, I think you can also make a strong argument that he is trying to keep the peace while also reaching his ambitions.
Yes.
That it's not something he's willing to sacrifice the peace of Westeros in order to accomplish his goals.
It is the duty of this council to protect the king and the realm from him.
I think you're right in that Otto is very much caught between this place of trying to continue to be the good hand and keep peace, but also feeling like he has a justified reason for pushing for Aegon as heir.
It seems like he's assuming that Viserys will come to the conclusion, in his mind, the right conclusion of Aegon being heir in time. It's probably also seems to be the way everyone else is thinking, that Aegon is the heir, even if he's not specifically been named heir. Mm-hmm. That's just seems to be something that he assumes is likely to fall into place.
His brother seems to have quite a bit of influence on him, giving Otto a bit of a push to settle this and not wait around for Viserys.
Yeah, that Otto's grown a bit passive.
And I truly think that in addition to him seeing that Rhaenyra could be a problem in herself as heir, he would kind of be doing a little bit of a disservice to his house to not push for Aegon as heir, as well as pushing for the peace that he knows that Viserys wants.
Everyone seems to believe that Aegon is the peaceful way to go, the path of least resistance, would follow the precedents that was set by Jaehaerys. It seems to be the stable choice, even if through a modern lens
It's awful.
We are inclined to think that it's very unfair.
So I think the point here is that Otto is trying to balance his duty and ambition, kind of expected of a lord, with also being a hand, and he does seem to love Viserys, but it's not really, their wishes aren't as aligned anymore, I think, at this point.
Yeah, I do think in the term of serving his king, we could fault him for neglecting to help strengthen Rhaenyra's claim, as she is the named heir, and it is still clear that this is Viserys' wish that she remain so. But as soon as Aegon is born, Otto's support of Rhaenyra does diminish very rapidly, and over the years he's never counseling Viserys in how to help Rhaenyra become accustomed to her new role and how to strengthen her own claim through alliances with the other lords of Westeros, and how to remain close with those who have sworn oaths to her. Otto's attempts to counsel Rhaenyra herself and teaching her how to rule also cease with the birth of Aegon.
I think maybe at the point where Aegon is born, Otto is just happy. He sees that Viserys finally has a son, and it's what Viserys has talked about for so long. And I think maybe in Otto's mind, it's okay, fine, now we're doing this new thing and we have our peaceful way ahead.
It does make sense that he does that and acts that way, but he does also... This does also destabilize the peace of the realm, and it is somewhat of a disservice as hand to the king.
I suppose there's no way around that. It is a little bit of a letdown as hand.
This video is of course about Otto, but in regards to this, it could be said that Viserys should also have had a lot of responsibility in showing Rhaenyra the ropes, and especially him himself having been present at the Great Council and seeing how important it is to have the Lord's loyalties and their support. And he doesn't seem to be pushing for Rhaenyra to strengthen those ties herself. He should have known how hard the people would resist such a succession given her gender, having seen it firsthand himself. The point still is that after the birth of Aegon, Otto as hand did not uphold the best interest of the current named heir, which is Rhaenyra.
That is true. I think one of Otto's best ideas is also one that is not necessarily one that sounds very good to modern eyes, obviously, because we're not super pro sister-brother unions. But suggesting that Aegon and Rhaenyra marry is definitely one way to avoid this conflict. I do understand the hesitation, the age difference, especially in the TV show, and it does not taste good, as we would say. So I think in addition to Otto kind of not always working for Viserys towards the later years, he also did hold a little bit of a key to solving the civil war. It's not foolproof, but...
A big L for Viserys there.
Big L. But then, are we even brave enough to include this? Because it's a bit of a, distasteful topic. So we've mentioned it, let's just float along. So, in the eyes of Rhaenyra, the most annoying things Otto might have done, at least in the first half of the season, is to rat her out. Rhaenyra just wanted to have a little bit of fun.
A little trip out on the town.
Yeah.
With your would-be lover.
I think this is definitely one of the really interesting scenes of the season, where we see Otto is coming to Viserys and telling him that innocent little daughter has done something, what does he say? She was doing something unbecoming of a maiden. And you just see the conflict on his face. Even though he doesn't seem to want Rhaenyra as heir, obviously he does still have love for Viserys, and he has to do something that is not exactly a fun conversation. Very interesting, and I honestly think this is one of the stupidest things that Otto does. He tries to inform Viserys that Rhaenyra has done something that I think in Otto's mind means that she can't be heir anymore. I definitely think that is the conclusion Otto thinks this has a very high likelihood of having.
As hand, it really is Otto's duty to inform the king of this. It would be really, not sure if treasonous is the right word not to, but we could definitely criticize him if he decided to withhold this information from Viserys.
That would be wrong.
But I think he definitely overestimated his influence and rapport with Viserys, and simultaneously underestimating Viserys' devotion to Rhaenyra.
For sure.
The way he's approaching the king and telling him in confidence rather than in front of the small council or somewhere he might have had a bit more protection himself in a way.
He seems to want to spare Viserys the embarrassment,
yes,
and it is such a big mistake. I think that an even more ambitious man than Otto, and quite honestly, a smarter man would have made sure that Rhaenyra's reputation would have been beyond repair. And we see this in Game of Thrones as well, where Ned's, can we say, mercy towards Cersei means that he is short ahead not long after, and Otto is thinking he's going to be, I suppose, kind, and as you mentioned, he thinks that this is going to convince Viserys, but all it does is to really lower his own rank. And by making sure that he's speaking to Viserys alone,
It makes it easier for Viserys to try to just ignore implications of what has happened.
because Otto is fired and nobody else knows.
Yeah.
But instead, if he made sure it was brought up during the council meeting, everyone there would know, and it would just be much more difficult to contain instead of it just being swept under the rug. A lot of the criticism I see of Otto is that he is the reason for this civil war, the dance, because he is making Alicent paranoid, and if only he shut his mouth and accepted that Rhaenyra would be a peaceful option, everything would have been fine, everyone would have been happy, it would have been such a great, big, happy, blended family, and the sun would always shine. He has seen that this can be a complicated transition of power. The question really is he the only realist around? Is everyone else just deluluing their way through life?
Living off the vibes.
It's definitely a desperate situation, and Alicent will be left completely alone with children to care for, and she is left with a husband who is only concerned with his, only child.
And Valyrian Lego set.
Obviously, we cannot forget. And it is my personal and historically backed opinion that Otto can see this disaster happening from a mile away, and the idea that they can just back down in peace is pure fantasy, because history has well shown this. In addition to actual real history that this is based on, we see this from also the fake history of fire and blood. Not even just the council Jaehaerys held, but Otto is a knowledgeable man, maybe?
I mean, he's from Old Town, where they're teaching the maesters, and his hand is kind of part of this job.
So it makes sense that he knows that succession battles can become a little dicey, and the murder of possible challenges to succession is a common solution that have been used.
Yeah, even in recent Targaryen history, for them, where we see Maegor the Cruel, who is also not supposed to be the heir to the throne, and yet is known for his gruesome and cruel ways of just taking it for himself.
Just hunting down the other prospects, essentially. If you are the only one left with any sort of claim, you do have a stronger claim.
You have the only claim.
I mean, yeah. If you're the only one, you have the only claim.
It justifies Otto's fears and his reasonings to Alicent. They hold merit because we can trace back to history where this has been an issue before.
And it's such a difficult thing for these characters to be in the moment, because they just cannot see themselves starting to kill each other. But we all know there is going to be a civil war, and these characters do not, in fact, solve this peacefully. And by saying that they should have just accepted Rhaenyra, they could have just as easily said Rhaenyra should have just accepted Aegon, and then we see how difficult it is to solve things
It's a really complicated
peacefully.
situation.
And Otto has seen how this can be solved peacefully and diplomatically with Jaehaerys' council. So he has knowledge of both ways of doing things, and soon we will too. I think we have proved that Otto is not the ambitious man that is the sole reason for the civil war happening. There's a lot of waffling, so it might have been lost. But so if you're thinking we didn't, you are wrong. We definitely did prove that. So
Yep.
just
Watch it again.
yes, it's there. Okay, you
And
just
then send it to your grandma and the rest of your family to also watch it.
Is there anything he could have done differently? It's also a little bit difficult to do because, there are so many options, I suppose.
You
can
probably
choose
make
to.
whole videos just about what-if scenarios.
Some of these are also possibly a little bit violent, but we have a little bit of a list. We made a little list, okay? Lists are good.
How to fix Otto's reputation.
He shouldn't have a bad reputation, okay? He should have a little bit of a bad reputation, but he shouldn't be seen as, the most evil man. And he's definitely not, as smart as Littlefinger. He's definitely not a new Littlefinger, okay? Littlefinger would not have been so stupid as to confront Viserys in secret. That's just moronic.
I mean, Littlefinger might have tried to marry Rhaenyra himself.
I mean, yeah. He wouldn't have succeeded because somebody else has already groomed her. But things Otto could have done differently in no particular order. He could have very obviously not married his daughter to a moronic king, and he could have kept her safe from all that mess.
He would have won Dad of the Year award. Okay, probably not.
At least he wouldn't have been like such a scumbag dad. And then he could have just stayed out of it, you know. Just
Not been a typical Lord of Westeros trying to raise his station and his family station and those things, but it kind of comes with what he's raised to do.
It wouldn't have avoided a civil war because Viserys was to marry someone else anyways. Probably there would be sons. There would be an issue. But Alicent would be having her probably a lot more happy ending.
We talked about this a little bit earlier, but he could have been smarter about how he chose to expose Rhaenyra and not been the messenger about her escapades, and just sort of solidified the ruination of Rhaenyra's reputation instead. That might have changed heir or the natural heir in Viserys' mind.
Not fair to Rhaenyra, but we're just talking the reality of the situation. Another much more violent thing to do was to expose Rhaenyra to an accident.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would do it. That would do it. Or we could have just, gotten some faceless men to assassinate Daemon instead, who's the actual evil mastermind.
The actual problem. Yes. Another great option for Otto to do.
We could argue that he should have done more to strengthen Rhaenyra's claim as well, though we likely believe that was futile, maybe, at that point.
He definitely could have. That was something he could have done.
It was on the table to make her a better ruler or more prepared.
Another option is to give Alicent moon tea, or even if he doesn't marry Alicent to the king, whoever is his new wife, if you make sure she has no other children, you still end up with the option that do you choose Rhaenyra or Daemon, but if he also does the little faceless thing with Daemon, I suppose we are well on our way to seat Rhaenyra without much...
We should write a book!
Alternative history. I don't know if there's anything else he could have done, and quite honestly, I'm not sure that removing Otto from the equation of this prevents the dance at all.
Maybe a small point would be that maybe Rhaenyra would never have been there if not for Otto.
Actually, yeah, true. True. That is true. So maybe he is the reason after all. But I still think that Otto actually tried to avoid the civil war much more than a lot of other people did.
It's not all that many who show concern.
True, because they are all living in Delulu land and think this is not going to be an issue. So, what is the conclusion?
Aegon the King. There might be more we could add to the list.
Have anything else? Do you agree or do you disagree? Do you have any other points?
To add to our beautiful list.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Otto out! I don't know if we can talk about Otto without talking about how brave he is. I'm not sure I would go to Dragonstone to try to challenge Daemon after stealing the dragon egg. And then again when Rhaenyra and Daemon.
I am sure I never would have done that.
I mean, those are just, they're not ambitious things for him to do directly, because, unless he's ambitious to die.
I think this speaks to his honour and duty, because he sees this as his duty to do, as it's the better choice for Viserys to not go there and lower himself to do it. Very brave.
I just don't feel like he gets enough credit.
Right, because
he has no dragon.
And he has no, as far as we can see, skills with the sword. Let's be honest, he looks ridiculous as he's walking up that bridge. He looks like he's walking to his death. He does not look like a warrior. He does not look cool. It's not a badass scene where he is like, wow, he survived 1,000,000 arrows shooting him. It's nothing like that. It's just plain and simple a man who's seeing that his job might be to die.
And he's gonna do it with honor.
That is our Otto. Honourable, brave, brilliant.